Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Time for another show. Time for some tariffs on the show. Yesterday was tariff announcement day. Today is tariff, oh my God, the markets crash day. And as we mentioned yesterday, they were announced after the markets closed here in the United States, like the traditional markets, the ones that close at 4 p.m. But of course, we now sort of have around-the-clock trading these days with aftermarket trading and futures trading and, of course, other stock exchanges around the world. And guess what? They don't think that this is a very good idea. In fact, they think it's a terrible idea. I understand I guess, I don't know, it's a Dow futures that they're talking about. Took a plunge of like 1,000 points overnight. So, 9:30 when the bell rings, and I believe the bell ringer today is... it's Chris Ruddy, I think. Is that right? Is that his last name, Ruddy? From Newsmax. They're going public. Newsmax has an IPO. Well timed, I guess. And so I'll see whether they get clobbered or not in their IPO. But anyway, 9:30 the market's open, and we'll officially find out how badly the benchmark stock exchange for the American economy, what they think of it. And, you don't have to do too much guessing. It's kind of basic economics. This doesn't really do the sorts of thing that, it certainly doesn't do what he thinks it's going to do, with the exception of possibly replace revenue lost to tax cuts for the rich. But I don't know if it's going to replace 100% of it. But, it was interesting, I guess, announcement. A large chart. It had visual aids, the kind of thing that Trump really enjoys. And not a coherent policy, but also not even a coherent document. It was very interesting watching Trump insist that this was a historic moment. This was something, mark it on your calendar. You were alive for the day that I did this historic thing. And it might be crash of the world economy. I don't know. But otherwise, there's certainly no historical benefit from it. So it was a little grandiose, to say the least. But then you would think that for such a historical moment, maybe not with the Trump administration, especially not when there's paperwork involved, but nobody checked the list, I guess, of countries and other things, other places that were going to have tariffs imposed against them, such that they ended up with a list of all sorts of, territories of other countries that aren't in their own right nations and don't have a tariff regime at all. Uninhabited islands, Arctic islands with only a penguin population, for instance. That too, although he might have become confused by the fact that one of them is the McDonald's Islands. And I guess he figured, I've certainly got a trade deficit with McDonald's. So that's not. I've been buying their hamburgers, for centuries, because I'm a vampire, and they hardly ever pay me any money. So we have a huge trade imbalance. Plus, of course, just the notion that he has in mind about tariffs, what they are, who pays them, of course, but what they can do and how you should calculate them. It turns, I don't know whether we have confirmation of this one, but it looks for all the world like they had an AI bot prepare the chart with the actual tariff numbers. But they came up with their own theory and formula for how to figure out what the tariffs would be, and it too makes no sense. But anyway, there you have it. That's the brief intro. We'll talk about the particulars about it with Greg. I want to make note, though, that Justice has passed a couple of notes. I have seen these things. One, apparently Trump said that his tariffs are A-OK because he talked to a very super genius person about the economy about it. The claim is that he cleared this with Lee Iacocca, which is supposed to, I guess, for 80s brained people, conjure up this idea of an economic genius. But he's dead, so that's an issue. Trump did not say when he spoke with him about the tariffs. And
We have to check out Ouija board futures.
Ah, yes, right. Okay. Oh, I forgot missed my chance to play your fanfare. Or do you want to try a different one? I got a website full of alternatives. Like if we wanted to try something new. Like
Gee,
that.
I can't wait. I like that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of newsy in a way.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Stephen Scheidt and Baroque trumpet stuff, so that's always cool.
Well, there's a whole page full of them, including all sorts of boing and slide whistle things, too, if we want to go that way.
The boing one is good.
All right.
So,
good morning, Greg.
Good morning. The Economist cover says Ruination Day. The Dow Jones futures are down 1,300 points.
Oh.
Bloomberg says S&P 500 is set to lose $1.7 trillion in value.
That seems like a lot of money.
The market's open. It seems like a lot of money. And when you look at that stupid list that they made up, and I saw some excellent analogies on Twitter. I wish I remember who so I could credit them about what Trump really thinks about the economy. For example, my favorite thing on that chart that you mentioned is Biot.
Biot.
British Indian Ocean Territory. It is the island that nobody lives on except for Diego Garcia, which is our military base. So Trump is putting a 10% tariff on our military.
That is excellent. Yeah.
It's got to be AI because nobody's this stupid except Trump is this stupid because here's what he really thinks.
And no one bothered to check, like, are these countries?
Of course. Well, they check with AI.
Yeah.
AI. Is your AI right? AI is always right, Dave.
Right. That's one of the issues with the AI evangelists is they don't accept that it will just make up wrong answers or give you a bad list. Like, there's only 200 and something, countries in the world according to the UN, and if your list has 600 entities on it, you should.
But doesn't include Russia.
Right, that's true. That was another big note. It's true that Russia is under economic sanctions, so we shouldn't really need tariffs on them. But apparently, Iran is under sanctions too, and they got an official, tariff stamp and everything.
You mentioned Trump's true thinking about how all of this works. As somebody put it, the way Trump thinks about the economy is if you're the International House of Pancakes and you sell him pancakes, you're ripping him off because he gave you money and you didn't give him anything. But
pancakes.
If the same International House of Pancakes buys a fan belt from you on the same day, then we're even. Even though you can't eat the fan belt, you didn't,
and I don't eat it.
The whole thing is stupid, and it has nothing to do with the actual economy, and he thinks things that you get of value from other countries don't count unless it's cash. That's one of the things that people don't, and the brilliant masters of the universe who run Wall Street say, he doesn't really need it. He's not going to do it.
Whoops.
They're incredibly stupid and short-sighted. They are. They think they're geniuses. They're really stupid people when it comes to, this sort of stuff. Well, nobody in their right mind would do that. Who said he's in his right mind?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's just the big if. Hey.
That's, big if. So that's number one. Number two, I saw this from James Surowiecki and some others who were also having difficulty with this concept. Matt Iglesias said, look, Trump is either trying to ruin the economy or extort things from people by rescinding the tariffs on a case-by-case basis. And Surowiecki said, no, that's impossible. People don't understand the way Trump thinks because probably they didn't grow up in New York like I do. Okay? How does he think about tariffs? Hey, buddy, it's nice lunch money. How's about you give me 25% of it?
Yeah. Oh,
no, really. I mean, you wouldn't want nothing to happen to your lunch money, right? So you got a nice lunch box, and if you don't hand it over, I'm going to put these tariffs on. But don't worry. We're friends, we're buddies.
Yeah, it'll work out.
You give me that 25%, I'll make all your problems go away.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're going to have some things.
Traffic problems in Fort Lee.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole thing. That's what he's doing. And so individual companies, and this is an ongoing world extortion, individual countries, individual companies, he wants them coming to him hat in hand, begging for relief. He might grant it because he's the king. It fits everything about him. It makes him the most important person. It gives him money. It gives him power. He makes them supplicants. It's everything he loves.
Mm-hmm.
And so why wouldn't he do it? And so all these people, and there's all these tweets surfacing from November, December. Oh, you libs who think that Trump's really going to do tariff, you really stupid people, Okay, well, what do you think today?
Yeah, I don't know if I guess they're just ignoring what came before. I did see somebody put together one of those, how it started, how it's going things. I don't know who this guy is that they were quoting, but Daniel Hannan, maybe Hannan. Did you see that one?
Richard Hanania, that one?
No, not that guy. Yeah, who cares what he thinks? But yeah, his name comes up in a while. This is Daniel Hannan. He was a columnist, I don't know, British, I think, because the first headline that they grabbed here is his opinion piece from September 2020. Trump's flaws are many, but he'd be better for Britain than Biden. If Biden wins, the free world may find itself longing for a stronger Anglo-American alliance. And then his next entry into it is a Twitter post from earlier in March where Daniel Hannan says, when the Trump presidency ends in ignominy, a lot of the people now cheerleading him will deny ever having backed it, which is a fairly...
Like you.
I mean, it's a good analysis. The problem is that means you. Yeah. Right? Oh, he's better for Britain than Biden. Oh.
So along those lines, we'll have to wait and see what happens. It's only another 15, 16 minutes before the market's open, so we'll know pretty soon. We know.
But it's 1,300 days till he's gone.
Yeah, a day for every point the Dow Jones drops.
Yeah.
That'll
be my
Trump's
prediction.
Mindless tariffs will cause economic havoc, but the rest of the world can limit the damage, says The Economist. Let's hope that's true. Bloomberg says Lawrence Summers said the Trump administration's looming tariff hikes are going to be like oil shocks or an earthquake or maybe a pandemic or something.
Oh, well, we've had those.
It's going to be a supply-side shock, in other words.
Oh.
Summers spoke hours before Trump is scheduled to unveil so-called reciprocal tariffs. Consequential economic policies, he called them, and they are.
Yeah.
Okay. We have some interesting things happening in Congress because of it. And you may just blow this off as being performative, but perhaps it's not. Yesterday, Rand Paul joined with Susan Collins.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Lisa Murkowski.
Okay.
And Mitch McConnell in joining the Democrats and supporting Tim Kaine's resolution to get rid of the tariffs on Canada.
All right. Jumping off of a cliff or something. Okay. No, this is all right. Good. It's a step.
It's not a sternly worded letter. It's actual intended to be a bill that becomes law. Now, yes, everybody understands that the Republican House is a different animal.
Yes.
But if the Dow Jones falls 1,500 points every day, remember what happened when there was a bank bailout that Obama proposed right after George W. Bush's second Great Recession?
Yes.
Republicans refused it, and then the markets tanked, and then they sort of said, okay.
Now we'll take it.
Okay. So the idea that the Republicans would never do this in the House, that's their front. But that doesn't mean that they would never do it. Things may get so bad that they do. I hope they don't get so bad that they do, but things may get so bad that they do.
It's possible.
I hope they get rid of it for good reasons, but they may wind up getting rid of it for bad reasons.
Okay. Yeah, that's true too, as long as they get rid of it. They're certainly different composition of the House now than then, and you could point to that. But yeah, it's a good point that they have a history of saying no, yes. And
all of Congress does it.
That's true. Well, in a different context.
That's the way Congress works.
That's
different
normally
context,
how they
but that's how it works.
Yeah, but
it's dead on arrival. This will never happen. This is okay. It passed unanimously.
Yeah. These guys can do this, and the fact that the Senate has done it and handed it to them, and now the roadblock to either fixing it or making it worse is a vote in the House, a very, very, very closely divided House, one that's just tied itself up in knots over a discharge petition, as you pointed out yesterday. Yeah, maybe. I mean, what can I tell you? You'll have to wait and see. It's hard to predict, but ordinarily we would say, yeah, but they'll never do it. But they might. This one is a maybe.
Now, I'm going to talk about the Tuesday elections in Wisconsin.
All right.
And the reason is that's the kind of thing that puts pressure on the Republican House. So they are, in fact, tied together.
I can see that.
All right. This is DJ Soak speaking. That's his Twitter handle. I think the eye-opener takeaway from last night is turnout, honestly. Dems got more than 1.3 million votes for Crawford, the winning Supreme Court candidate.
Yes.
That's more than every statewide Republican ever got, except for Ron Johnson in 2022. In other words, this was a high turnout midterm.
For a court
she got
election,
more.
that's
a
something.
Court race got more than the winners for most of the midterm national figures. Putting up strong midterm level numbers in April of 2025, this is not going to be a normal election cycle. And on that note, John Johnson, who works for the MU Marquette University Law Poll.
He should work for Johnson & Johnson.
The Wisconsin, gold standard.
Yeah.
A few thoughts about the April Wisconsin election. First of all, turnout was crazy high. The Wisconsin percentage of people that turned out is higher than 38 states in the 2022 midterms. For an off-season, one-off court election.
Yes, that's supposed to not even be partisan election, allegedly.
Right. This might just be normal April elections in Wisconsin now. The Liberal candidate got 55.7% in 2018, 49.7% in 2019, 55.2% in 2020, 55.4% in 2023, and 55% in 2025. So the Democrats, when they run a Supreme Court person, look to get 55%.
Okay. Person of the court.
So if that's true every year, there's not a lot of evidence that the Democrats persuaded anybody. There's not a lot of evidence that, based on the fact that they always get 55%, that Elon somehow tanked this election. Now, that may be disappointing for national Democrats, but it's terrible news for Wisconsin GOP.
Yes.
Because in these off-year elections, they can't get it up.
What? Wow.
They
had no idea. All right. Yeah.
Conservatives used to have a structural advantage in low turnout elections. That's gone.
Okay.
And so that means that liberal candidates may wind up winning every election, and all of a sudden the Supreme Court is 6-1.
I'm for that, although it seems like
it'll take a couple of years, but the next two elections are coming up. Right. And if we repeat the pattern that we've seen, 55% for the liberal, then
that would be good.
That would be good.
That would change things. I don't know if you can count on
this ain't Scott Walker's Wisconsin anymore.
That's good. They get a variety of sandwiches and haircuts. And
on the other hand, if he's right, and we're not persuading anybody, the fact that business is scratching their head and saying, "You're ruining me, but I'm still voting for you," or voters who say that because, you find that interview in the paper almost every day.
Sure.
I don't know what's wrong with them, and I don't know what it's going to take to change their mind. But this is freaking crazy.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I have a somewhere. Where's that? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Sure. That's about what the guys sound like.
Oh, yeah.
When they think about that.
So the Elon effect, Dan Schaefer writes, every single one of Wisconsin's 72 counties shifted to the left from the 2024 presidential election. And that includes Waukesha, crucial Waukesha County, Ozaukee, Washington, the Wow counties. It includes the more liberal areas like Madison and Milwaukee. It includes Kenosha, swingy sort of Kenosha, Eau Claire, which tends to be more blue, Green Bay, which is a swing area.
Okay.
I mean, everything,
It's green.
everywhere went more Democratic, which meant really less Republican. And this was a high turnout election. So remember, conventional wisdom used to be that Republicans do better in low turnouts, but if everybody turns out, Democrats win. And then Trump turned out people that usually don't turn out, and high turnout elections went for Trump. And so the conventional wisdom said, well, low turnout elections are good for Democrats because they're highly educated, motivated people vote, but in high turnout elections, they lose. Well, this is a high turnout election where they won.
So
now the new conventional wisdom is, okay, high turnout is good for Democrats so long as Trump isn't on the ballot. And Trump is never going to be on the ballot again.
All right. I'll give him one more shot.
So I would say nobody really understands it.
Yeah. It sounds like that's not a theory. Or it's a theory that you tried it and it wasn't working. And
it's the narrative in the media. And so I'm telling you, you're right. Just ignore it when people say that. They haven't a clue as to what's really going on locally.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're all pleased with the outcome of the election in Wisconsin. And I mean, I guess because the assumption is, they'll allow this person to take office and everything will be fine. That's good news. We've yet to find out whether or not, oh my God, I'm declaring a state of emergency in Wisconsin and there's a huge amount of fraud and Elon Musk is going to pay for the campaign to show it. But I think they're just tired and can't execute that strategy.
I read this analysis also, and I laughed, and I thought to myself, whoever's analyzing this must be white.
Oh, well, almost certainly.
What was most interesting to me, said this person, was that Crawford, the Democratic candidate for Supreme Court who won, actually got more votes than Mandela Barnes in half of Wisconsin counties. Despite there were more votes being cast in 2022, but Crawford actually got more votes than Mandela Barnes did. I wonder why's that. I wonder what's to do.
Well, offer us a theory so we can figure out what kind of person you are.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, extraordinary circumstances. That's fine. I'm glad that there were extraordinary circumstances and everybody's attention was focused on it, and it was a huge loss.
Let's just say it. I mean, there are people that won't vote for a black man or a black woman. They just won't. They won't tell you that, but they won't.
People.
So when you look at this and say, oh, isn't this interesting? The white person got more votes than the black person did in a similar circumstance where more votes were cast the year the black person ran. Was that because if it's an individual, because we don't do DEI anymore, is it because that individual candidate was different in some way, not up to speed, this, that, or the other thing? I'm just saying.
Oh, don't say those things. All right, well, that analysis happened.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Anyway.
Yes.
So all of that. But the main point really is not so much that, because we're not relitigating the 2024 election. What we're saying is when different elections have different results, it's generally not because, this year we persuaded them, but last year we didn't. That's typically not how it works. The way it typically works is this is a different electorate. The people that didn't vote in 2024 voted in 2025, or the people that voted in 2024 didn't vote in 2025. And that changes the composition of the electorate. Therefore, that changes the election results.
Certainly.
And that's typically what
plausible.
happens.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the sort of Schoolhouse Rock version of it is, well, you must have persuaded people, because that's, you make your pitch
swing voters,
and the candidates say these different things and everybody goes, but it's not everybody.
There's swing voters and independents who always vote for a particular party.
Yeah, those independent people. So yeah, this is probably a better theory, certainly more descriptive of people who actually turn out. I mean, not everybody goes to vote each time. So the idea that it's all persuasion, well, I don't know. What can you do? This has been a very interesting. I'm glad for the result. That's all I can say, really, at this point. And what it means, well, you see that the political science professionals are tied in knots trying to decide what it means.
But if the political science professionals are tied in knots, and this is really the overarching,
it's not a bad thing.
Then the Republican members of Congress who are trying to figure out which way the wind blows, because that's how they live,
yes,
are also tied in knots. They don't know.
They are.
And if they don't know, they're not going to act on what they don't know. And
True,
that means this isn't the kind of pressure you'd think it would be on Republican members of Congress, because they can't figure out what happened.
You might help
can't
them.
Figure out, we can help them by telling them that
Yes.
your side got blown out. And by the
and
way,
they did see
go
that.
to a town meeting if you don't think I'm right, and see what happens.
Right.
That might persuade them.
I think so.
But when you say people usually don't get persuaded, we're talking about members of Congress as well.
Yeah, that's true.
They typically don't get persuaded.
The tariff day story is a big opportunity to do this. They're confused. They're divided about what to do about the tariffs. Over in the Senate, you saw some Republican defections. A good point from Kevin Cruz today that even if you've got a Republican representing you in Congress, whoever it is, however crazy they may be, call and complain about the tariffs today. That will set something in motion. If Republicans are hearing in even moderate numbers that the tariffs are worrying their constituents, they're primed for that, and they'll pick up on that. And Tuesday's results will help them think about it. So it's a good point. It's a relatively low cost thing to do, calling your congressperson. So go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Try today. All right. We're coming up on our break, but there's a few seconds, and we'll test out our new audio settings to see whether this whole thing works for everybody. There goes the
music. When we come back, we'll have some information about how the market opened.
Yeah, the market will have opened. That's all. Whether I'll have that information, I don't know. But between the two of us in the second segment, we'll be able to retrieve that information. The only question is whether it will be AI
It's
swap.
readily available online with a slight delay so that you don't make money off of it.
Right. I mean, we'll go ask an AI bot. The market is up 10,000 points. Wow.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. Oops. Hey, hi everybody. Hello. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We're having a spirited discussion in the break, which we should be having with you, so let's do it again. But the tariffs,
I'm looking
they suck.
at the picture. There's a picture here from a public notice article by Aaron Ruper. Trump's third-term threats are not a distraction. It's as close as Trump gets to telling the truth. But in this story, to illustrate Donald Trump, it's Trump holding up this poster, this giant postcard of reciprocal tariffs, he calls them.
That's the chart.
And the first four countries happen to be China at 67%, European Union 39%, Vietnam 90%, and Taiwan 64%. Japan's 46%. South Korea's 50%. If you're wondering why Japan and South Korea are now in talks with China about how to deal with this, one of the immediate reactions to the tariff, not talking about the stock market, is you're driving our allies into the hands of China to make alliances. Congratulations, you're a genius.
Well, I'm very friendly with China, and now they're They're good friends with me. They ate the most beautiful chocolate cake at Mar-a-Lago, so I can always call him and ask him for a favor if I need to. Yeah, it's disturbing, to say the least. And, of course, now these countries are seeing the figures in front of them. And then there's this question of, well, how did you come to those numbers? We did mention that, well, I think AI was doing it. But what was AI doing? It appears that what they decided to do was, well, first of all, he's got this weird warped idea about what trade even is. Like you were saying, if I give you $15 and you give me a dinner, I have a trade deficit with you because I keep giving you money and you're not giving me money. I'm giving you dinner, $15 worth. Yeah, but it's gone now. And so where's my $15? Is this idea that, first of all, that's what trade is, that somehow paying cash for goods isn't trade. Secondly, he's got this weird idea that there shouldn't be trade imbalances as between countries. At least with the Americans, trade should be neutral. If we buy $1,000 worth of goods from Botswana, I'll say $1 million, then Botswana should be buying $1 million worth of goods from us. And if we buy a little more of what they've got than they buy from what we've got, that's like a problem that has to be rectified. And he wants to get to trade neutrality with everybody, but that's just never going to be the way trade works.
But,
it's dumb.
Again, that distorts the idea that goods have any value. The only thing that has value is money, which is ridiculous. On top of that, then he invented a new metric to base this whole thing on, which is, all right, so if we buy $2 million worth of goods from country X and country X buys $1 million worth of goods from us, he now says, oh, that's a 100% trade deficit. We're paying them 100% more than they're paying us. So what he's done then is said, all right, so the tariff, to set things equal, the tariff should be 100%. So that now we're sending them $2 million, and when they send us $1 million worth of goods, you know how he thinks tariffs work, that country will also pay an extra $1 million to the United States to get their $1 million worth of goods into the country, and then we'll be even. But they announced, well, that 100% would be crazy. Now, they announced in this thing that President Trump is so generous and so fair that what he's decided to do is cut that number in half, just to be fair. So if we spend $2 million with them and they spend $1 million with us, he's putting a 50% tariff on them, which, one, theoretically, A, that's dumb. B, that wouldn't bring us into balance. That would bring us halfway into balance, but you're being generous. But what was odd was I've never seen, and I am not an economist, but I took economics enough, right? I've never seen anybody express a trade deficit in terms of a percentage before. This is a brand new methodology of considering trade deficits, and it comes from a very, very dumb place in which every country in the world is doing the same amount of business with one another, and there's no real reason to think that would ever happen, even if everybody had all the same goods. I don't know that politicians ever admit mistakes.
Not this one, certainly.
But I'm waiting for business people on Wall Street especially to say, you know what, I was wrong about Trump. He's really a stupid person, and this is a disaster.
Yeah. Well, it's in the Economist article that you mentioned, and apparently I don't subscribe.
They say it off the record. I'm waiting for them to say it on the record.
Oh, I thought that was part of their. Oh, you mean you're waiting for others to say it?
No, in general. In general, they say it off the record.
The Economist magazine, they were pretty straightforward in there. Yeah, like this is dumb and it isn't going to work. But yeah, so I've never seen this percentage idea. And, of course, I've never seen the idea of we should be taxing uninhabited
I should be watching
territories.
CNBC today to see how the cheerleaders do.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be sweating.
Squawk box. Oh, this is great. This is wonderful. You stupid liberals just don't. Well, yeah, okay, fine.
I don't know. So
and Andrew Ross Sorkin can say, look, this is terrible. Who are you going to believe, you or your lying eyes?
Yeah, I don't know. So just the percentage thing makes no sense. They invented that out of nowhere. And then I think they set the AI bot to work on that. And they even down to asking the AI bot, make a list of countries, then find out what the trade deficit with them is, and then do this calculation and then spit out a chart. So we ended up with, independent territories and external territories. The Arctic islands are on there, and there's no people, but I don't know. I don't even know that AI is correct in, singling out these particular land masses as a thing. Like, the uninhabited islands belong to somebody.
Yeah, putting a huge tariff on Diego Garcia, our own nation.
Yeah, well, right. That's maybe
it makes no sense.
I didn't even see that example until you mentioned it this morning, and that's about as dumb.
It's about as dumb as it gets. And so the other problem that smart people have in trying to evaluate what dumb people do. Is make excuses for them. And Aaron Rupert came up with a wonderful example, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah.
Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg argued during the 2024 campaign that Trump demonizes immigrants in order to distract from his own record of incompetence. And it turns out Trump demonizes immigrants because he thinks they're actual demons.
Oh.
And so, you wouldn't understand that, and you would make excuses and say, no, that can't be. It's like looking at Trump and saying, oh, these tariffs are being put for extortion. Oh, that can't be. Real people don't do that in the real world. You don't get it, right? Trump is doing what he says, and he's saying what he does. That's what his voters like about him. But it happens to be true. So when he says something really stupid, it's because he's stupid. And when he says that he's going to do something really stupid, he's going to do that thing. And so stop making excuses for it. That gets to when he says, I'm going to run for a third term. I don't want to hear excuses about how the Constitution says you can't do it. He's going to try. And don't be an idiot this time. Listen to what the man says. This is what he's going to try to do. There's already been theories floated about how that happens.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance runs. Trump runs as his vice president. J.D. Vance steps down. Trump is president.
Yeah. It's out there. Hey, and there's others, he says, as well. I'm not certain what they are, but who cares?
I'm not saying he's going to succeed. What I'm saying is, do not discount the fact that he's going to try.
And it costs you nothing to not discount it, I guess. So,
well, it's a distraction.
Although you have
to
a trade
talk about something else. We actually have to talk about this because this is bad.
Yeah. So, by the way,
Trump demonizes immigrants in order to distract from. No, we have to talk about the fact that Trump is demonizing immigrants.
Okay. Seems fair. I got a note here. Mighty OCD says the NASDAQ is dropping like a stone. Ron Filipkowski is tweeting or posting pictures of the Dow Jones, the DJIA chart, which it's on the 1 week setting. So, but the chart looks like hell falling off.
Well, look at the 1 day. I mean, it's already down 1,100 points. And that's 2.62%. The S&P 500's down 3%.
Here's where percentages make sense.
NASDAQ's down 4%. These are not good.
So by the way, our prediction mechanism, I think we will blow past this point eventually. I don't know whether it'll turn around and close up a little more, but
it often does because bargain hunters come in.
Yeah. You mentioned that maybe we lose a point for every day remaining in Trump's term of office. So that is 1,388 days. So that's the market you're looking for.
Working on it. It's already 11:07. So
yeah. So right, like I said, there's plenty of time. So it may go down 1,700 and then bounce back and end at 1,388. But that's if you got to bet, go with 1,388. No real basis for it, but there's no real basis for any of those tariff numbers either. So I don't know what to tell you. He's got a very weird and warped concept of how trade works. And, this idea of, well, if we just make it so expensive to import all these goods, then people will make those goods in America to avoid the tariffs, which could work fine in some manufacturing or whatever. But as people were, of course, pointing out all sorts of things like, I don't know, trade with Madagascar. They're on the chart, right? I don't know what kind of tariff they're getting slapped on them, but apparently, if you look it up and you believe that it's not AI slop, you get the answer. What are we importing from Madagascar? Nickel and vanilla, right? Two wonderful things. But you can't start a nickel factory. You can make nickel.
Wait. Where does chocolate come from?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
Well,
if
some of
you're
them
ruining the
Madagascar.
ice cream market, like this is really bad.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. And Trump will say, well, vanilla's too expensive now. Eat chocolate. What's wrong with you? Anyway, but yeah, like we'll just grow some vanilla. Well, why don't we grow vanilla in this country? Not the climate for it. Could we? We could maybe make an artificial hothouse vanilla. It just seems like, is there a lot of market space for that sort of thing at this point, given that everybody who's investing in new jobs in this country wants to invest it in cryptocurrency for some reason? I guess that's the thought. You could plant vanilla on the roof of a data center and use all the heat venting to grow tropical crops on the roof. How about that? Right. But you can't just start a factory to make stuff like the rare earth minerals. Well, why conquer Greenland when you can just start a rare earth factory and make some stuff? You can't. You have to import it from someplace.
Let's just make natural resources.
Yeah. So,
it
very quickly falls apart.
Oil.
Not to mention the fact that even if it's televisions, it's like, oh, okay, we'll make TVs here. All right, how much does it cost to build a TV factory, train all the people how to make TV parts, buy all the machinery to make TV parts, and
then get all the rare earth metals you need for it from overseas.
Get the cement, build the factory. Hold it, why build? I'm thinking now of
let's make these TVs out of bricks.
Rodney Dangerfield had the answer in business class, right? Why build? You're better off leasing a $1.25 a square foot. It's like, Trump is approaching it, I guess, sort of like the magical thinking of it. We'll just build the factories to make the things here. But, we got a lot of people, but 330 million people, if they're all working in manufacturing, still doesn't generate the manufacturing capacity to make what we buy in this country. We buy a lot of stuff. And I think they're saying this whole short-term pain thing is supposed to be like, well, we need to go back to a simpler time when you washed your clothes in the river and
that's
had
the
one
weird
table.
part about all of this. Academic economists step back and say, this is terrible. It's not going to work. Here are the reasons. And, it's really bad and it's going to be a disaster. And the people who write columns or do CNBC analysis, well, here's how it might work out in the end. It's not going to work out in the end. What are you doing?
I don't know.
It's terrible. And it's going to be a disaster. And we're seeing it unfold before our eyes. And we told you beforehand, and you frickin' didn't listen. I don't understand you.
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know who they're thinking is going to I'll accept
I'm a
some
captain of industry,
pain.
and I know that this is going to cost me a whole lot, but in the end, I understand what he's doing, and I want to support. Why? Why do you want to support him if you understand what he's doing?
I don't know.
Because I might make money on it, to help with the rest of the economy.
I guess that's possible. You might be the one supplying the vital items that everybody is now lacking and can no longer get at Walmart. But it's going to be a difficult transition, let's say, to bring people back to, in a simpler time, you just didn't buy so much stuff. We're going to convince you that the American dream is not about having
what
stuff.
you know, it's who you know. That's the time I want to go back to.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it as well. But the idea that the consumer economy we're in now, where you can, DoorDash ice cream to yourself, why do we have to have electrical appliances doing work for us in the household? Scrub your dishes, wash your clothes in the river.
Put the little lady in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
Make her wash dishes. What do you need a dishwasher for?
I feel like we're not going to make that transition all that smoothly, and the people
take
who
her
bought
shoes
electric
off and make
cars
sure she's
to
barefoot.
drive others around are going to be upset. Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. We'll find out what's going on. We'll keep an eye on the market and I guess make a list of everybody who's going on TV saying it's so crazy it just might work. All we have to do is go back to, agrarian, homesteading, sod busting, what have you, and we'll be fine. And whatever we need, we'll manufacture or grow, even if it only exists in other countries. Okay. That's economics. Wharton, boy, take your money, take your thing. Oh, yeah, maybe. Oh, has he got a trade imbalance with Wharton? He gave them money. What did they give him? I don't know. Not an economics education, that's for sure.
Max Fisher writes, for years I've said the U.S. economic centrality makes it sanction-proof. Today, the U.S. figured out how to way to impose crippling sanctions on itself.
Yeah. Right. All this ends up meaning is that, other countries are just going to say, well, fewer people are going to want to buy what I have in the United States. I guess I'm going to have to send more of my stuff to Europe where they're still willing to pay. And then they'll have the rare earth minerals. So we'll have to go to war to steal them from them in order to not make anything with them here because we can't. All right. Sure. That's it. And the problem is, of course, we bring all these raw materials in if we want to make TVs, but what if the workforce is too busy joining the Proud Boys to make TVs? I don't know. We got to get those guys back to work.
Now, the question on the table is going to be, how quick is it before you start seeing layoffs? How quick is it before you start seeing prices go up in grocery stores? If you want to persuade Trump voters, that's the only way.
I guess, because now he does profess, he's just recently, he says, learned about this weird word, this old-fashioned word sometimes people use, groceries. I talked about it during the campaign.
I just invented them. Nobody knew about them before me.
He's truly convinced that, I mean, I guess, look, food is presented to him all the time. He doesn't shop. But
you know about the classic thought experiment of the trolley problem?
Sure. We wrecked
where
it.
Where a person has to decide whether to divert the trolley to hit one person from the track that's going to hit multiple people.
Right. Should we treat
and what does that
Trump's
person do? That's
COVID
a classic trolley problem.
Yes.
Well, somebody did a graphic of a trolley just running over people in a straight line. And the trolley problem here is that you can stop the trolley at any time, but in doing so, you have to admit you made a mistake.
No.
That's the problem for them.
Yeah.
They never admit they made a mistake. I'll send you that graphic. It's really quite
I think that seems
telling.
pretty clear. Yeah. We're not good with the trolley things. I did see somebody say something. Who is Steve Zorowitz today saying, you say trolley problem. I say trolley opportunity. Kind of sums it up. That's right. Well, okay. So that impacting everything, and I'll keep an eye on the market every once in a while. If I remember, I'll take a look at the numbers and announce them during the show. But I don't know if that's value added. Maybe not.
Well, I'll give you value added with Trump's tweet.
I'll give you a value added tax then.
At 8:30 before the markets open, and I quote, "The operation is over, the patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before. Make America great again." Then the markets open and crashed. That's, right in a nutshell, the Trump presidency.
Market bad. The patient lived. Not really. He did. Yes, all of the patients lived. All 6 patients that I made this monster out of once lived, and now they're alive again, oddly enough, and here they come. Well, it's a lot to digest, and yet it's not everything. Did you see this morning that apparently the Guardian reporting Mike Waltz, just to keep Signalgate in the news for another day. Yesterday we discussed, or I brought up that Mike Waltz has a Gmail problem as well, using commercial Gmail to do a lot of classified work-related discussions. And the supposition here is that there are people who want him out from inside the White House, who want him out for, probably for selfish reasons, and are attempting to drip him to death. Today's story, Mike Waltz's team set up at least 20 different Signal chats for different angles of national security work. So the Houthi small chat thing, probably the title of it should have hinted to us that, yeah, of course, he's probably got one for Iran, one for Russia, Ukraine, one for Diego Garcia Island. Right, exactly. So, right,
there's no emergency there, but there's going to be.
Right. What you didn't know was we was going to ruin it. But apparently, at least 20 different Signal chats, all, I guess, all susceptible to having accidentally included outsiders. And even if it doesn't, what are you doing?
Well, New York Times says, for some more good news, that Laura Loomer is advising Trump on who in the National Security Agency should be fired. And
Yeah.
Vanity Fair reports that when Americans died, were blinded, had eyeballs removed from tainted eye drops, U.S. FDA relied on Dr. Timothy Polhouse among its few top sterile drug manufacturing experts. Of course, he was fired yesterday.
But he saw it coming with clear eyes.
I suppose.
Yeah. So what is it? That's the guy. I think I saw that headline. Now I'm confused a little bit about what it was. But he was the guy who made sure that, like, for instance, eye drop products were safely manufactured.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean,
Who cares?
since everybody gets squeamish when you talk about their eyes, that's a perfect example.
All right.
I mean, other things are equally important to make sure that they're functioning and not going to kill you or poison you.
Yeah.
But like putting acid in your eyes, ew.
Yeah, I'm against that.
Right. Newswire, shares of Best Buy fall 14.5%. Target is down 8.4%. Well, Trump is absolutely right. The operation was a success. The patient died, but the operation was a success.
Yeah,
so
we finished it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll have to. It's just going to be that. That's the thing today. We're going to have to keep an eye on what garbage happens. Do you have? Are you an Economist subscriber or no?
Me?
Yes. You are. Okay. So I'd like to see
G. Elliott
the body.
Morris was their data guy before he went to 538,
okay.
so I've been subscribing to it to
Very
get the
good.
polling data for years and years.
I'd like to see the body of that President Trump's mindless tariffs article, and I only get, I'm not, so I see the first couple paragraphs, and it seems intriguing. And perhaps worth
I
reading
will
if you
arrange.
might want.
My people will talk to your people, and
No,
somehow or other we'll get
We're
this
not
to you.
violating rules. It's just, look, if he had an article in his hand that he wanted to read, and he wanted to read it in a voice that sounded like mine,
I'm giving you a
it would
gift
happen.
link. This is included in your subscription. Only one person will be able to view this article for
There
a
you go.
limited time. I'm going to give it to you.
All right.
I will put it in the team chat so it doesn't disappear.
Yeah, great. Okay, I can share.
And
I
you
can't
can
give
read
it to
at your convenience.
I can't put it in the. Only one person, only The Economist has come up with this technology, by the way. Everybody else, gift articles, gift it to whoever you want. You can gift 10 articles a month, say, if you are a New York Times subscriber, but you can give it to as many people as you want.
Yes, but everybody could read it.
Right.
And then other ones say, only one person can read it and only for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and with one eye. And that's not because the guy from the FDA
and only
was
in a
fired.
mirror. You have to read it backwards.
The Economist has ways of, I'm going to make it even stingier, but okay.
Well, nonetheless, there it is. I sent it to you. It's at the bottom of the team chat.
Okay, excellent. Look, they got to get paid for their work. Everybody well, not anymore. Now everybody just will barter because that's the new economy.
Because money's worthless. It's not worth it.
Oh, it seems like a very bad situation. I like the Guardian's headline on the weird listings in the tariffs, but nowhere on earth is safe. Trump imposes tariffs on uninhabited islands near Antarctica. That's also a good headline for it. And
you stupid liberals keep accusing Trump of doing things he's not going to do, like everything that he's doing.
Yeah. Right.
You stupid liberals said he's got something to do with Project 2025. He said he's not associated with it. Well, but they're doing everything that's in there.
Yeah.
Well, stupid liberals said he was going to impose tariffs. He would never do that. Well,
Yeah. I mean, some of these things take longer to play out. Like in his first term, toward the end, when he started saying, maybe we could trade Puerto Rico for Greenland. And he's not going to. And now we're in the.
Maybe we could trade Puerto Rico for paper towels.
Yeah. I think he tried to do that.
I like paper. I like them so much, I give them out as gifts.
Right. But it's a trade imbalance because he didn't get cash for the paper towels. What's wrong with you?
So how many days does Trump have left?
1388.
It's 1310 down right now. So
all right.
Pretty close.
Yeah. So maybe 1388 really, if we really wanted to make more of a game of it, we would say, well, maybe that'll be the over-under point. But if it lands on 1388, it's like hitting the roulette wheel. But yeah, we could try it. At
Humphrey Bogart's Cafe.
Yeah, or they'll be shocked that the gambling is going on. And the good news is in this, you know what? I'm thinking about his definition of trade and the tariffs and the trade imbalance, and then thinking, well, now I saw other people make this joke, but for a different reason. Now I understand how he could bankrupt casinos. Well, sure, you don't understand the economy or anything, but I guess you bankrupt the casino.
Yeah, how does a casino go bankrupt?
In his view, everything's supposed to break even at a casino. Otherwise, you have trade imbalances with Harrah's Casino. That's not good. I keep gambling at this casino. Casino occasionally gives me money, but it's never break even. So I'm going to impose a tariff on the casino. And if the casino agrees to pay the tariff in order to keep the trade balanced, well, then it's not going to last very long. Of course, he didn't bother to do that. And in real life, he's not going to give anybody. It's an issue that requires correction when other people don't give him, and he thinks of himself as the United States, don't give him money. But, he's not going to correct the imbalance in the other direction. I'm hoarding all of your money. You want some of it back? That's not the way the world works, unless it's you giving me money, in which case it is how the world works. He's a little nutty. All right. Well, that brings us almost to the top of the hour and gets us through that crucial, more crucial than Waukesha County, crucial first hour. So thank you. And we'll be introducing the music in just a little bit. But I don't know, anything else that needs to be snuck we forgot about because we were so obsessed with tariffs?
Well, I should mention Eric Adams, who, of course, is in political trouble, decided not to run for mayor as a Democrat. He's leaving the party. He's going to be an independent. Yeah. And so New Yorkers will get to choose between Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. What a great place to be.
Well, yeah, I guess if that's the nominee. Now, there's others
Cuomo
running
will win the Democratic nomination, and then Eric Adams will run as an independent.
I keep seeing people who are in New York posting on social media about it. Are they doing some sort of ranked choice voting primary in New York?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't live there. You don't live there
matter.
Now. I guess.
Cuomo's running head and shoulders above everybody else.
Why is that?
Because name recognition.
I guess so.
And besides, he was really good during the pandemic and speaking to people.
Was he?
And everybody
has
like incredibly short memories.
I guess so. Yeah, name recognition. Is Reggie Jackson interested in running for office at all? I mean, I don't know.
Only in October.
That's not a name recognition. You have to be old, I guess. All right. Well, at any rate, find another mayor. New York has some real problems.
The problem is the election's in November, and Reggie, of course, would win in October. But not necessarily.
Yeah, right. Peak too early.
All
right. Well, we can make it happen. All right. Thanks, Greg. We'll check back in. Oh, gosh, it's the end of the week. We'll check back in on Monday. Have a good weekend. Let's get some craziness in our view. All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Putting a tariff on the first hour of the show that has closed it out. Greg has shared with me, as discussed on the air, openly, in front of everybody, The Economist's article, but a totally legit share. You can't read it because that's how legit it is. But I can, and it is President Trump's mindless tariffs will cause economic havoc. And remember, this is The Economist magazine, and so it has to be right about issues of economics. That's not really true, but what was more interesting about them, and I saw people contrasting it with, say, the New York Times, which everybody is frustrated with, to no end with their stupid headlines. Their framing on the whole thing was, I forget, what was their headline? I'll go over to the New York Times and find it. Right now the top story is U.S. markets plunge from shock of Trump's new tariffs. And there's an ugly-looking chart that shows change in global stock indexes, but I thought that was indices. But anyway, this is since Inauguration Day. So, okay, that's interesting too. I don't know if today's chart is as ugly in every country, but what was I looking for? Where's the head? Oh, there it is. The headline I was looking for: Trump's tariffs, our latest sign of his second term appetite for risk. That's what they had to say. Now, what's bouncing up and down here in my Zoom I'm not sure what. Did I get another message? Is that what that's bouncing up and down for? I'll go and take a look. But that was the New York Times headline, and that had people saying, well, when is this, appetite for risk thing? I mean, this is possibly global economic disaster. Shouldn't you say something more along the lines of, say, I don't know, President Trump's mindless tariffs will cause economic havoc? But you got to go to The Economist for that. What's bouncing up and down here was Trump sent me another item here from Joseph G. Allen, as I recall, and there's the G. Joseph G. Allen over at the X Twitter thingy. But whatever, it says, now economists know how scientists felt when he said inject bleach. That's a good point. And, the economists were just going bonkers last night trying to figure out, and some of them trying to just spin this into, do the sane washing thing, and it's just impossible, and bad news in general. Anyway, so if you were a New York Times reader, you got that frustrating Trump's tariffs are blah, 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 appetite for risk. Let's read the plainer language, thanks to Greg's sharing of the Economist piece. So there was the subheader to this. Oh, and by the way, they made a play on, remember Trump insisted on trying to make it a thing to call this Liberation Day yesterday, the announcement of all these tariffs. And by the way, if you're liberating the country or the world or both, why wait until 4 p.m. after the markets close? Why not liberate us in the morning so that we can have a full day of liberation ahead of us? But, he's a jerk in that way, and he doesn't care about us. So they are printing this piece sort of under the, heading of Ruination Day. We haven't really come up with a really good name for this. Trump trade tax, whatever, but Liberation Day isn't going to stick, except as a tongue-in-cheek. But Ruination Day, President Trump's mindless tariffs will cause economic havoc. The subheader is, but the rest of the world can limit the damage, which I guess is supposed to be the silver lining here. But I don't know. I don't know how much they can do. Let's read their view on it. And remember also that The Economist tends to be leans well into the conservative side of the spectrum, sometimes to the extreme. If you failed to spot America being, as I guess Trump said in his speech, looted, pillaged, trigger warning, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, what an orator, near and far, or it being cruelly denied a turn to prosper, then congratulations. So if you missed any of those obvious lies, it's America's turn to prosper. Only the last 100 years. If you missed America being looted, pillaged, raped, etc., then congratulations. You have a firmer grip on reality than the President of the United States. It's hard to know which is more unsettling, that the leader of the free world could spout complete drivel about its most successful and admired economy, or the fact that on April 2nd, spurred on by his delusions, Donald Trump announced the biggest break in America's trade policy in over a century and committed the most profound, harmful, and unnecessary economic error in the modern era. Speaking in the Rose Garden of the White House, the president announced new, quote, reciprocal tariffs on almost all of America's trading partners. And that's another angle. We didn't even get to discuss that he insists. I guess he must have listened a little bit on to the tariff lecture. Well, we'll have reciprocal tariffs. You see, when another country imposes tariffs on our goods, and that does happen, we'll impose reciprocal. We'll fight back. If they put a 10% tax on importing American cars, we'll put a 10% tax on importing their nickel and vanilla, whatever it may be. And, sometimes we let them get away with it because they're not really a big trading partner. It's a small country, or we may want to project American soft power into that country by, yes, they tax those things as they go in, but they're still relatively affordable inside of the country. and it boosts the, an ailing economy in this in this region of the world where otherwise they might turn to, other power centers for support, whether that was the old Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc, or whether it's the BRICS countries now, or whatever it might be. We would do our part to bolster the economy there for various reasons. But if there was no other, otherwise, if there was no interest in it, or if we were importing an enormous amount of stuff from them, we might, impose a reciprocal tariff. But here he's invented a scenario in which these unilateral punitive tariffs from us are really reciprocal because reasons. And again, it has to do, I'm delaying getting to this article, but it has to do with, if you're trying to find, it doesn't make any sense as a methodology, but if you want to understand what that methodology is he's basically said, if there's a trade imbalance at all, right, which we said is, of course there is. There's always going to be a trade imbalance. It doesn't make any sense to worry about that as a concept. If it gets beyond a certain, dollar value, you might worry about it. But as a percentage, generally, who cares? If we're doing 100% more importing from a country with an impoverished population, good. We're sending money to people who, I guess presumably need it more than we do. And if they're not buying a ton of American goods, it's easy to understand they don't have the money to do that, right? As I mentioned, Madagascar, that actually got circulated yesterday. Not only are we buying things from them that we don't have natural resources or can't grow, tropical plants. I assume we could artificially grow a certain amount of vanilla, but who cares? We can make artificial vanilla flavoring too, and we do that. And anyway, the point is, the real issue is, well, they're not buying a great deal of American goods in Madagascar because apparently the claim was in this post that the annual income on average is about $510 a year. So that doesn't leave a lot of disposable income for luxury American goods, if America makes any luxury goods anymore. But certainly not going to buy a Ford F-150 that way, right? So, of course, there's a trade imbalance that's just going to happen. And it's not a bad thing by itself. We needed those things. We paid a decent price for them. They can't afford the things we're sending them. If we send them lower price things, apparently they're buying something. Buy a couple of things from us, fine. But it doesn't have to equal zero. But in his mind, it does. And that's weird and wrong. And on top of it all, he claims that the difference, percentage-wise or any way you express the difference between what we're sending them dollar-wise and we're buying from them dollar-wise, any difference is attributable to trade barriers like tariffs. That's why he thinks these things are reciprocal. If there's a 50% or 100% trade imbalance, as I said, the stupid example, if we're sending them $1 million worth of goods and buying from them $2 million worth of goods, he views that as a 100% trade deficit and will therefore impose half of that, 50%, as the tariff. But he thinks it's a reciprocal tariff because clearly the fact that they're sending us $2 million worth of stuff and we're sending them $1 million worth of stuff is because the reason we're only sending them $1 million worth is not because that's all they want or that's all they can afford. It's because they must be imposing tariffs on us. Otherwise, we would be sending them $2 million worth of stuff. Why? Why do you think that? Well, because they're sending us $2 million worth of stuff. So what? What does it have to do with anything? Well, it's not trade if it's not equal. That's what a trade means. When you're bartering with somebody, an individual, yes, trade as a economic term is only about I'm going to give you this and you're going to give me dollars or whatever, and vice versa. I'll give you this, you give me dollars for it, and then I'll use my dollars to buy these things from you, and they don't have to be equal. The number of dollars I give you is equal to the value of the goods you give me. That's all. to my purchases from you don't have to equal your purchases from me. That's dumb. That has nothing whatsoever to do with it. But in his view, that has everything to do with it, which is crazy and wrong. But it's hard to grasp how wrong it is. Anyway, so he thinks that unless there's trade value neutrality as between every two unilateral trading partners, the United States and Madagascar, Madagascar and the United States, unless it's equal numbers of dollars, the difference is explained by the other countries' either overt tariffs, or if you run into the problem of, no, they don't impose 50% or 100% tariffs on our goods. They just don't have money to buy our stuff. That's it. Well, that's a hidden tariff. A hidden tariff? Why is it happening? Because they're too poor. They're too poor to buy our stuff. So therefore, we're going to punish them with a reciprocal tariff. So he just views every dollar that we don't get from them, or every percentage point difference in the dollar balances, one way or the other, as a secret tariff. So if we're sending them $1 million worth of goods, and they're sending us $2 million worth of goods, that's a hidden 100% tariff. They're not charging us anything extra. We're just selling them at market value, the Coca-Cola we sent them. But if we don't send them $2 million worth, Trump designates that a 100% tariff on Coke, which isn't happening and isn't real. But he says the trade impact of it is still there too. So that's real enough for me. Now I'm going to give you reciprocal tariffs. I'm punishing you for not being rich enough to buy twice the Coca-Cola that you asked for. You bought a can for every person in the country. Buy 2 cans. And if you don't, that's a trade barrier. It's not. The barrier is we ran out of money. Anyway, so that's why he's calling it reciprocal tariffs, I guess. And like I said, he must have been in class for the day where they taught, well, there's 2 classes of tariffs, generally speaking. But yeah, if you are doing it back to somebody who did it to you, that's reciprocal. And I guess that's supposed to be viewed as okay. So that's the okay kind. So our tariffs will be labeled reciprocal. That's it. That's all the thinking there is. So, speaking in the Rose Garden of the White House, the president announced new, quote, reciprocal tariffs on almost all of America's trading partners, though, as Justice pointed out, curiously missing from the list, Russia. They got the islands, but not Russia. They missed Russia. Isn't that weird? By the way, also on tariff day, while tariffs were going up, trade barriers going up everywhere, except not only did they not go up at all on Russia because they were left off the list, but individual Russian oligarchs who used to be under sanctions have had sanctions lifted yesterday. In fact, yesterday was the girlfriend of one of the oligarchs, who I didn't even know would be sanctioned, had the sanctions lifted against her. So trade breaks for Russian oligarch mobsters, trade punishment for the rest of the world, including penguins. Anyway, so as The Economist was writing, there will be levies of 34% on China, 27% on India, 24% on Japan, and 20% on the European Union. Many small economies face, what is this? It's not swinging, right? There's an E in there. Swinging? Is that a word? Oh, you economist weirdos. What is this? What am I looking at here? I guess I better look that. Yeah, swinge. Strike hard or beat. Yeah, so that's a $10. Oh, now it's a $20 word because there's a $10 tariff on it. Swinging? Wow. Okay. And why not? We'll add that to the. Oh, look at this. Wow. You know how when you look something up and then you get the dictionary definition? Now in Google you get the AI placement, but swinge is listed here as strike hard or beat. And then an example. Did she not swinge the dragon of rip-snorting inflation? Wow, I don't know. That sounds like some sort of dirty euphemism, if you really try and squint at it hard. But okay, swinging. Got it. Many small economies face swinging rates. I don't know if I like it or not. All targets face a tariff of at least 10%, right? That was one of the other things. If we can't figure out how much money you owe us, then it's 10%. Because we want money, basically. And, of course, he has the wrong idea that the other countries pay the tariffs. Including existing duties, the total levy now on China will be 65%. I mean, we already had, tariffs on them. Now they get more. So 65% import duties on everything from China. That's not going to change people's shopping habits at all. Canada and Mexico were spared additional tariffs because they're our friends. And the new levies will not be added to industry-specific measures, such as a 25% tariff on cars or a promised tariff on semiconductors. But America's overall tariff rate will soar above its Depression-era level back to the 19th century, which, of course, you remember, Trump thinks is a good thing. He's actually pointing back to then and saying the Gilded Age was gilded because tariffs, although it was gilded because no income tax. But anyway, that's different. But and also a good example of specific reprieves. One of the things that we suspect is at the heart of this, the use of the tariff regime, is that Trump can give people passes on it. And that's been his practice. Announce broad imposition of tariffs that everybody wails and rends their garments over. And then you say, well, I'm a big Trump supporter, or I'm about to become a big Trump supporter. Can't I get my business or my industry, if I'm feeling generous, exempted from these things? Well, how big is your check? And if it's big enough, I'll lift it. We'll start off by hitting you with a huge tariff, but we might give you a pass on it either right away or in a month or whatever, like the way we do dodgy stuff, right? Turn everything off, and then if we find out it was crucial, we'll try to turn it back on again. Back to the article. Mr. Trump called it one of the most important days in American history. He is almost right. His, quote, Liberation Day heralds America's total abandonment of the world trading order and embrace of protectionism. And it's not even really offering any protection. Like, he doesn't really speak of it very often in terms of protection for American industry. He talks about it as a revenue raiser, but an ancillary benefit would for him be protectionism. Just, we'll make those things here, even if we can't. The question for countries reeling from the president's mindless vandalism is how to limit the damage. Almost everything Mr. Trump said this week on history, economics, and the technicalities of trade was utterly diluted. His reading of history is upside down. He has long glorified the high tariff, low income tax era of the late 19th century. In fact, the best scholarship shows that tariffs impeded the economy back then. He has now added the bizarre claim that lifting tariffs caused the Depression of the 1930s and that the Smoot-Hawley tariffs were too late to rescue the situation. The reality is, as we mostly learned in high school, the reality is that tariffs made the Depression much worse, just as they will harm all economies today. It was the painstaking rounds of trade talks in the subsequent 80 years that lowered tariffs and helped increase prosperity. On economics, Mr. Trump's assertions are flat-out nonsense. The president said tariffs are needed to close America's trade deficit, which he sees as a transfer of wealth to foreigners. Yet, as any of the president's economists could have told him, this overall deficit arises because Americans choose to save less than their country invests. And, crucially, this long-running reality has not stopped its economy from outpacing the rest of the G7 for over 3 decades. There is no reason why his extra tariffs should eliminate the deficit. Insisting on balanced trade with every trading partner individually is bonkers. Like suggesting that Texas would be richer if it insisted on balanced trade with each of the other 49 states, or asking a company to ensure that each of its suppliers is also a customer. And Mr. Trump's grasp of the technicalities was pathetic. He suggested that the new tariffs were based on an assessment of a country's tariffs against America, plus currency manipulation, and other supposed distortions, such as value-added tax. But it looks as if officials set the tariff using a formula that takes America's bilateral trade deficit as a share of goods imported from each country and halves it, which is almost as random as taxing you on the number of vowels in your name. This catalog of foolishness will bring needless harm to America. Consumers will pay more and have less choice. Raising the price of parts for America's manufacturers while relieving them of the discipline of foreign competition will make them flabby. As stock market futures tumbled, shares in Nike, which has factories in Vietnam, now tariffed at 46%, shares fell by 7%. Does Mr. Trump really think Americans would be better off if they only sewed their own running shoes? If only. The rest of the world will share in the disaster and must decide what to do. One question is whether to retaliate. Politicians should be cautious. Pace, Mr. Trump. Trade barriers harm. Trade barriers harm those who put them up, but because they are more likely to cause Mr. Trump to double down than retreat, they risk making things worse. In other words, if the other countries put up their own retaliatory tariffs, Trump will say, now that's, we retaliated and set everything back equal. You added more, so now we have to add even more in order to bring us back to the fake version of equal that I have in my mind. So yes, they might cause Trump to double down, and they risk making things worse, possibly catastrophically so, as in the 1930s. Instead, governments should focus on increasing trade flows among themselves, especially in the services that power the 21st century economy. With a share of final demand for imports of only 15%, what are we talking about here? America does not dominate global trade the way it does global finance or military spending. Even if it halted imports entirely, on current trends, 100 of its trading partners would have recovered all their lost exports within just 5 years, calculates Global Trade Alert, a think tank. In other words, even without the United States, they can find buyers to make themselves whole within a couple of years. I got it. The EU, the 12 members of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, which apparently has its own, CPTPP. I don't know whether that's easier to say than the whole name or not. And South Korea and small open economies like Norway account for 34% of global demands for imports. Should this effort include China? Many in the West think that China's state-owned enterprises violate the spirit of global trading rules, and they have in the past used exports to soak up surplus capacity. Those worries will worsen if more Chinese goods are redirected away from America. Building a trading system with China is desirable, but will be viable only if it rebalances its economy towards domestic demand to ease worries about dumping. Also, China could be required to transfer technology and invest in production in Europe in exchange for lower tariffs. The EU should centralize its investment rules so that it can strike deals covering FDI. I don't think I even know offhand what that might be. And it should overcome its aversion to big trade pacts and sign up to the CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which has ways of resolving some disputes. Lastly, I don't know, we got a little esoteric and economic here, but it is The Economist. The madness of King Donald sums it all up at the end. If this seems grueling and slow, that is because integration always is. Throwing up barriers is easier and faster. There is no avoiding the havoc Trump has wrought, but that does not mean his foolishness is destined to triumph. But yeah, I guess the prescription for it is long and arduous work in trade agreements and integration of trade everywhere else in the world. And it could take a couple of years to do it, but I guess they have no other alternative. I guess the only other thing I'd add to all of this is that I guess if you really squint at it, you might be able to see in I don't even know what. In the policy behind all of this, that Trump sort of claims to have in mind this idea of, well, if you don't like paying the tariffs, and remember, he also says, also, you're not paying the tariffs, but if you are, which you are, and you don't like it, you could just move that manufacturing on shore and make it in America. But one, I don't know that we have the capacity to make all the things that we buy. But I guess what he might be trying to say, and I guess maybe this is sort of the Curtis Yarvin version of all this, although I don't know that he endorses this, but who cares? We think that guy's nuts anyway. But this kind of crazy ass fantasy thinking, if you ignore all the pain it would take to get there, which is what he's telling you should be doing, you could bring it back to, well, do Americans really need all this stuff? This is where that comes from the last couple of days, saying, well, we need to sell people on the idea that having lots of cheap goods isn't the American dream. What you need to get used to is no more door dashing ice cream and having only one TV. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. If you want a sampling, I just happened to see somebody tweeting around a screenshot from the Financial Times, so we can exchange like for like here, the way Trump would have us do all of our trade. Moving from The Economist to the Financial Times, there can be no logic washing of Donald Trump's tariffs. This isn't part of a carefully designed industrial policy or a cunning strategy to induce compliance among trading partners or a choreographed appearance of chaos to scare other governments into obedience. It's a wildly destructive stupidity, and the generations of American and particularly Republican politicians who allowed things to slide to this point are collectively to blame. That seems like it was worthy of the 3 fire emojis that went along with it. Will they show me they won't even show me the article that it came from, unless is this the title? A U.S. tariff pathology is unleashed upon the world. But I just thought I'd give interesting version of a firewall here, or paywall. I knew I didn't subscribe to the Financial Times, but I thought I'd give you the article's title and the writer's name. But I don't know, I guess the Financial Times, well, maybe it's an editorial and it doesn't get credited to one particular person. But I would think that the writers over the journalists at the Financial Times would want to negotiate with the management, at least allow our names to get through the paywall. Anyway, reasonably well put there. So good. I don't know. I guess I could give you the post from Blue Sky in the summary. So I'll hang on to that. But yeah, we were just sort of pointing out just how, I don't know, what was it the last thing we were making? Oh, yeah, right. If you squint at it really hard and you ignore all the, transactions, costs, and externalities of it all, which is to say, get rid of economics. And then if you're going to get rid of economics, I don't know why you're holding on to this one piece about balance sheets. But I guess if you were to onshore all manufacturing and whatever wasn't getting manufactured either because we just didn't have the people power to manufacture it, or we don't have or can't access the natural resources necessary to make it, or the parts necessary to put it together in this country, or it's just too costly, or the labor costs are too high, or whatever it is, things that don't get made as a result of onshoring all manufacturing activity and refusing to buy manufactured goods from elsewhere, that's just part of the sacrifice that Americans are going to be expected to make. You should get by with less stuff, and certainly less cheap stuff. And there is an argument to be made for that it was some sort of a mistake to reorient the economy such that Americans were spending the entirety of their disposable incomes on cheap goods that can't be repaired and fall apart, but eventually, such that no longer repairing anything. We bought a TV, and then it went on the blink 5 years down the road, but that's fine because now there's an even larger version of it for less money. And instead of fixing this one, we'll chuck it out in the garbage, fill the landfill with it. It's a bad thing. And then buy an even bigger one from, whatever giant retailer. And we don't have a repair place. We don't repair anything. We no longer go. If I want a TV, I no longer go to Mr. Jones's TV shop around the corner. I go to Best Buy, where nobody has a vested interest in staying employed for any, particular amount of time because another better job comes along somewhere else, and there's no expertise per se. I'm sure that's insulting to the people at Best Buy who have been there for a long time and know everything about every TV on the market or every computer in the department they work in. But yeah, it's the movie version of it from You've Got Mail, let's say. I don't know, good throwback film, like the Fox Books scenario. Why buy books from the local shop around the corner when you can buy them for less over at Fox Books? Sure, the people working at Fox Books don't know anything about the books they're selling, but it's likely the case that most consumers. I don't need any questions answered about these books. I don't care. This is the title I'm after. I know what I want. Give it to me. You might as well give it to me for less versus a very small percentage of the population who says, well, what's your recommendation? If I liked X, Y, and Z books, that's. And there's lots of people who are avid readers who love to do things that way, but they're the smallest percentage of Americans. But that's just by way of example, right? The idea that maybe it was something of a mistake to big box everything and to get rid of local shops and to get rid of repairing anything and make everything disposable. But reverting back at this point, that's the pain that we're all supposed to accept. I don't know how well that's going to go over. And I don't know how well people are going to hang on. And I mean, it could take generations before what? And what do you get out of it? Yeah, well, eventually, in the third generation of all this, Americans will give up and stop hoping for better. And they'll accept that gruel is okay to eat and wearing patched up clothes is cool and fun. And washing them in the river is excellent. Then why do we have to have all the, how come I have 15,000 different things to wear that I never wear when I could be repairing the same suit of clothes over and over again? But I don't think Donald Trump thinks he's going to be one of those people. He's just going to continue to import everything he wants because he has limitless resources, or he thinks he does anyway. But Elon Musk certainly thinks he does as well. It's, it would be great to get back to employing Americans and having local economies more or less be able to stand on their own 2 feet. But even that was never really the case. And it only works if you're only willing to have a really super limited number of things in your life. And Americans, I think, are too used to having everything on demand. It would be interesting to see, well, why is it that this idea is being supported by America's billionaire class, which for the most part has made its money by delivering the opposite and promoting the idea of the opposite, that we can give you nationally or internationally the same product on a mass scale wherever you are. In fact, one whole business model behind the richest, one of the richest guys in the country, Jeff Bezos, is all about that. So, undo Amazon entirely. No more buying everything under the sun from one source and having it delivered to you. If you want those low-cost antacid tablets delivered to you that you've been buying through Amazon for whatever reason rather than going to your local store. One, you'll either have to go back to the local store to do it, or you'll have to open an antacid factory in your local store and local region and make your own. Everything you need needs to be manufactured and manufactured close to you, not just across the country. Anyway, I don't see that working out. But, there's a theory beneath it all that it might be nice to go back to, and I don't know that it would result in full employment. There's no real reason to believe that would necessarily be the case. I mean, we made everything locally during the Depression as well, and everybody was astoundingly poor and deprived. Not that we couldn't have put those people to work making those things, but that's where, maybe the billionaire trickle-down theory was belied. If you were sitting on a pile of money still after the market crash, you still didn't go out and create jobs. You just imported the stuff you needed to survive the best you could while waiting for the rest of the economy to recover. You didn't go create jobs. So, a lot of that is a myth, it seems. But we're going to bet on it nonetheless. All right. Like I said, there are other stories. We're falling way behind on all the other things that have been waiting for a chance to get airtime. We might as well go and discuss them. I mentioned to you and to Greg that The Guardian had a new story about Mike Waltz's continuing security woes. I don't know whether it all comes from somebody trying to finally push him out the door or not, but let me tell you what someone may or may not be using to try to do that, because it's news nonetheless. Joseph Gedeon for The Guardian, right? Not Gedeon, but Guardian. Mike Waltz's team set up at least 20 signal chats for national security work, according to this report, or a report that this report cites. Does say that in the headline. National Security Advisor and team shared sensitive information, that's in subheader scare quotes, in group chats on app, sources tell Politico. So I guess that's where it's coming from. But good job getting the news to me via The Guardian and social media instead of Politico doing it. Donald Trump's National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his team have created at least 20 different group chats on the encrypted messaging app Signal to coordinate sensitive national security work, sources tell Politico. The revelation, which cites 4 people with direct knowledge of the practice, follows heightened scrutiny of the administration's handling of sensitive information after The Atlantic recently published messages from a chat that include the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sharing operational details of deadly strikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen. Those anonymous sources told Politico the Signal chats covered a wide range of policy areas, including Ukraine, China, Gaza, broader Middle East policy, Africa, and Europe. All 4 individuals reported seeing sensitive information discussed in these forums, though none said that they were aware of classified material being shared. Over the last few days, Waltz's flippant nature over the protection of national security secrets has been exposed. The Washington Post reported on documents revealing that Waltz's team has been conducting government business through personal Gmail accounts. The White House has again defended the practice, with National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes telling Politico that Signal was not banned from government devices and was automatically installed on some agencies' phones. They continue to tell that story. All right, we won't read their words in telling that story another time. We'll skip up to the insistence by administration officials that none of the messages were classified, including past remarks by the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt and Hegseth, fly in the face of the Defense Department's own rulebook on what it would count as classified. In the earlier chat, Hegseth, of course, you know the story. We don't need to retell the Houthi chat story. Others in national security establishment have similarly warned that using messaging apps like Signal could potentially violate federal record-keeping laws, so there's that angle on it. Despite earlier controversies, Leavitt indicated on Monday that Trump stood firmly behind his national security advisor, which usually means he's about to be fired, and that an investigation into how Waltz accidentally added a journalist to a sensitive chat had been closed. And I mean, they closed it in order to cover up the situation, but I'd close it pretty quickly myself because I know how it got added. He added him, and he was dumb and careless. That's what happened. It was a mistake, and in my view, he should be held accountable for the mistake. In Trump's view, he should not be held accountable for the mistake. Well, opinions differ. Okay, so I wanted to get that on the record. That's new news for the day. Let me jump back into Pocket here and see what else I have put aside for you. Yeah, right. Eric Adams, as Greg mentioned, is back in the news for a couple of reasons. One, he's going to be running as an independent for re-election as New York City mayor, and that could be disastrous, but he's unlikely to succeed, I think, as an independent, despite their name recognition. Unfortunately, that may also mean that we end up with Cuomo, which is kind of embarrassing, but who knows? I mean, at this stage of the game, it might be, embarrassing, but relatively grounded and competent in the Trump era. It might not be the worst thing in the world, but why not vote for a better thing and a better person, obviously. I don't know. That's just sort of worst case scenario. Well, if you end up with Cuomo, he may, sexually assault you. But I can't even really say the trains will run on time. I don't know. Whatever you're supposed to get out of a Cuomo mayoralty, I guess, besides the sexual harassment. Anyway, there's a different angle on Eric Adams. Eric Adams, as you know, was poised to have the case against him, the corruption case against him brought by the DOJ, dismissed because reasons. They were going to have a deal where we'll dismiss the case against you and you will help us round up immigrants in New York City. And we'll guarantee that, the Trump DOJ thought, by saying we're going to dismiss the charges against you without prejudice, such that we can reinstate them and bring them again if you fail to do our bidding on anything, but presumably primarily on immigration. Anyway, the case was, they tried to dismiss it, and then there was a little bit of a hiccup. They went to the judge, did some third-party interveners, saying, well, wait a second, this is actually highly corrupt. Maybe the court shouldn't do this. They, both parties, both the defendant and the prosecution, now say they want the charges dropped. But, of course, the defendant always wants the charges dropped. Why does the prosecution want the charges dropped? Is this in the national interest? Is this in the public interest to do this? So you can say, I'm not going to drop the charges. Or you can do something different. And something different was indeed what happened. But ultimately, depending on what you read this morning, you may have been greeted by, yep, the charges have been dismissed. And you say, I can't believe it. Another judge is doing Trump's bidding for no good reason. Well, yes, but also no, because this is the show. And Empty Wheel has got the detail on it that will set it apart from just straight up capitulation, at least a little bit. There's an important difference. And how does it look like? I'm going to get through this thing. It's going to take forever because she quotes extensively from the order. I'm going to give you the long story short on this one, I think. Judge Dale Ho upends Emil Bove's weaponization. There's a little wrinkle to this, and that's how she's putting it. As predicted, because why not? Yesterday, Judge Dale Ho, I'm going to embellish a little bit, did dismiss the indictment against Eric Adams, but he did it with prejudice, meaning that the Trump administration now can't charge Adams anew if he fails to do their bidding on immigration or whatever else. That's the wrinkle. In his opinion explaining the decision, Ho engaged in a great deal of legal analysis, but ultimately it came down to this. Even though DOJ's explanations for the request to dismiss the indictment don't hold up, because there's no way to continue prosecuting Adams, Ho would end up having to dismiss the case in 70 days anyway on speedy trial grounds, right? So that introduces a different element to it. But basically, if Ho had said, all right, I disagree here. The DOJ is wrong to dismiss these things. I'm not going to dismiss the charges. Then the DOJ just says, well, fine, but we're not going to take any action to prosecute those charges. We're just going to let that indictment sit there and walk away. And if we don't prosecute it, then he's not in jeopardy. So that seems fine too. We're fine with that. And then the judge realizes, well, the speedy trial requirements of the Constitution are such that you can't just leave an indictment hanging over somebody's head like that and say, we'll come back to it later in 5 years if we feel like it. Whatever. No. So what would end up happening is the defense would say, listen, the DOJ apparently is not doing anything to prosecute these things. We just got to dismiss this indictment based on the fact that they're violating my right to a speedy trial by delaying this way. And the judge would likely find himself penned in there and say, yeah, Constitution, it's important. So the case will end up being dismissed with prejudice anyway. So he says, we might as well get to it now and remove this, threat that the DOJ is able to hold over Adams's head. This is not the ideal solution, but since we're not going to get anywhere prosecuting him because they're just not going to do it, this is the next best option. So I wanted to put that out there and point you to Marcy's analysis. It's much more detailed and explains everything and points to parts of the legal analysis in the decision by Judge Ho, if you want all that detail. But long story short there, yes, he's off the hook, but no, Emil Bove doesn't quite have the control over Adams that he was looking for, and neither does Trump. Although they could just make up charges and just say he's a Venezuelan terrorist and say you're going to El Salvador unless you do what we want. They may be able to use that as leverage. But this particular play won't work out the way they were hoping. All right. Another story. Let's see. What else should we be sharing with you? Well, let's double back on something else we discussed a couple of days ago, just in terms of confirming the story as we knew it. We're going to confirm some priors here. HuffPost's Arthur Delaney has it all in the headline for us. Maybe we only need to do the headline. Emails confirm Social Security Administration canceled the state of Maine's contract as political payback. What was that all about? That was when our acting commissioner, Leland Dudek, remember him, called Maine Governor Janet Mills a petulant child for defying Donald Trump. You remember that this is the conference of the governors of the various states convening in Washington and showing up for a luncheon at the White House, and Trump singles out Janet Mills, right? Where's the governor of Maine? You're not doing the thing we wanted done on the trans thing, whatever that might be. You're very bad, and we don't like you, and you're going to, if you better change it, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And she said, go screw yourself. We'll see you in court. Remember all of that. And then we found out a couple days later that the Social Security Administration had ended for Maine and for some other states, which I don't know if there's an explanation for that one, ended the contracts for administering a program whereby the parents of newborn children born in Maine could automatically get a Social Security number generated for their newborn child remotely without having to go to the Social Security office. And instead they could stay and take care of their baby and do things like they're trying to do in Congress with Anna Paulina Luna, right? Anyway, they ended that contract. It's just a big giant pain in the ass for people. It made no sense. They ended up reversing that, I think. But now we have, there was only speculation. Is it really something that this White House would do? I mean, they are that dumb and that petty. But do we have confirmation that they're actually doing this to Maine because of this clash at the luncheon? Well, I guess now we do. Emails show that the Social Security Administration canceled those contracts with the state of Maine as political payback against its Democratic governor. A week after Maine Governor Janet Mills clashed publicly with President Donald Trump at the White House over transgender athletes in girls' sports, Leland Dudek, the acting commissioner of Social Security, asked his staff about what contracts Maine had with the Social Security Administration. Leland Dudek, you may recall, is like the Quisling guy that got left behind. It's the highest ranking remaining civil servant at Social Security Administration that wasn't fired immediately by Dodgy, and who agreed, I'll do your bidding. In fact, I'll help you access our physical building, access our computer systems, and I'll help you pull the right levers. I know how this administration works, this agency, and I'll help guide you around, and I'll help make life miserable for others if they get in your way. So he stuck around, and he was the one who said, how can I help the Trump administration punish Janet Mills? The agency has a vital records contract with every state, allowing parents to request Social Security numbers for their newborns. You know all about that. According to emails obtained by the way, by Jerry Connolly, Democrat of Virginia, House member, and the chair, not the chair, but the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. And remember how sad everyone was that AOC didn't get that seat. I'm sure she would have done terrific things with it. But by the way, this also frees her for doing other terrific things. But then everybody was worried. Jerry Connolly, he's old and frail and he's ill, and all that is true. And he's no AOC. But he'll never do anything with this. All right. Well, this isn't, world shattering or anything, but this is what he's up to. So he's obtained these emails in his investigation of what Dudek was up to. And that's what they reveal. Social Security staff informed Dudek that canceling the contracts would result, though, in improper payments and potential for identity theft. In other words, Dudek said, what can we do to punish Janet Mills? I got this idea. We can turn off this contract. The career staff there told him, you could, but that would actually probably increase the instances of Social Security fraud. And apparently, though, Dudek said, so what? Do it anyway. Please cancel the contracts. While our improper payments will go up, and remember, that's what Dodgy was all about. We got to stop the improper payments. He's actually going to undo Dodgy's work just to screw Maine. That's the point here. Please cancel the contracts. While our improper payments will go up and fraudsters may compromise identities, no money will go from the public trust to a petulant child, Dudek wrote, referring to Mills, an actual governor. Canceling the Vital Records contract would make it more difficult for the federal government to track births and deaths in Maine, hampering efforts to prevent fraud across government agencies, all of which use Social Security records to prevent improper payments. Connolly called on Dudek to resign immediately. But, he probably will pretend he didn't hear that call. The acting commissioner, which kind? The acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration should serve the American people, not create waste, fraud, and abuse on the taxpayer's dime, Connolly wrote in a letter to Dudek laying out the email traffic. The Social Security Administration didn't respond to any request for comment. White House criticized Mills, essentially taking ownership of Dudek's decision to punish Maine, and standing by it, I guess. Dudek previously admitted to HuffPost that he was upset with Mills. Why? But he insisted the contracts looked strange to him, even though he admitted that it had been a mistake to cancel them. Representative Chelly Pingree of Maine called on Dudek to resign after he confessed his animus towards Mills. After Dudek canceled the contracts, Maine announced parents would no longer be able to request Social Security numbers when filling out birth certificate paperwork, the way it's done for 99% of new babies in the U.S. And anyway, by the end of it, Dudek ended up reinstating the contracts less than 24 hours afterwards, amid an outcry from pediatricians and behind-the-scenes pressure from Maine's congressional delegation. And he said he hadn't intended to create an undue burden on the people of Maine through his internal email suggestions, although the emails suggest otherwise. That's the key point here. Now, you were just scrambling to cover up, but that's what it was all about, being petty on behalf of Donald Trump, which seems weird. So, yeah, that guy should go, but it doesn't look like there's any, real path to exiting him or defenestrating him in any way that has a real, chance of working. All right, we're just about at the end of our allotted time for today, so probably no ability to get a full other story in there. But let's see, anything else that requires or perhaps requires some teasing of a story for tomorrow, possibly? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's see. Maybe this is a short thing. I just wanted to bring this one up. I guess this is in reaction to what here? Pam Spalding is posting this on Blue Sky just as an FYI. Felon 47's bright idea about that third term thing. right? Going over like a lead balloon in Reddit, r/conservative board. So in addition to hearing reaction about the plans or the actual enacted policy of deporting people blindly to El Salvador, bothering people as varied as Ann Coulter and Joe Rogan. In addition, your run-of-the-mill conservative activist and poster at Reddit has things to say about this idea of floating the third term. So comments collected from posts there including hard no, or does Trump want to cause a revolution? This is how you cause a revolution. Jokes or not, this stuff is how you lose midterms, says the third person. The fourth person saying, no, just no, don't even joke about it. I mean, not really substantive responses to it, but just to give you an idea of the sentiment there. Someone within his circles needs to tell him this is how Dems win midterms. To which someone answers, he doesn't care. And that's probably likely true. And lastly, what is with this guy constantly torpedoing his own credibility? I love some of his ideas. That's a bad idea. But they come in this crazy narcissistic package. Well, yeah, happy birthday. Nice to see you. I don't know. I just thought I would put it on the record. There's something going on, and there's a germ of rebellion that might be, watered and might take root. Who knows? So again, take Kevin Krause's advice and give a call, give a call to your Republican representatives if you have them and you think they never want to hear from you. This is a great opportunity to chime in and say, these tariffs, this third term thing, it's crazy. You can't back this stuff. You got to find distance for yourself. It might not work, but it only needs to work for a couple of them, as we witnessed in the Senate. Like Greg told us, they voted against this tariff regime.
To Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
And by the way, it's not the new tariff regime they were voting against. It was the old tariff, like a couple weeks old tariff regime against Canada and Mexico that they were looking to invalidate the president's alleged emergency powers to impose. Just to straighten that out. Sorry, that ate up all the time I needed to introduce Justice Putnam, who's coming next. But you knew that.